You're listening to the DSW podcast with James Ledger.
Croeso. Welcome back to the Disability Sport Wales podcast with me, James Ledger. Got a really exciting show today. Get your rackets at the ready. We're going to be talking all things tennis, and we've got Tennis Wales' coach, Geraint Richards, on the show. How are you doing, Geraint?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, James.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I know you're a very busy man in many different areas. I appreciate your time. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in sport generally, and just a bit about you?
Okay, well, I started playing tennis when I was about 16, played right through university, and then started coaching just around the year 2000. Then became manager of the Welsh National Tennis Centre in Cardiff, and one of the first things I did was start a club for players with a learning disability and also for wheelchair tennis players. And then I just started coaching more and more wheelchair tennis players, started working with the Tennis Foundation in London, who ran the Great Britain programme, became a national junior coach and a national ladies coach. Then just after London 2012, became the performance director for GB Wheelchair Tennis and did that right the way up to Rio, and then left that job and have been doing various little bits of wheelchair tennis coaching with different countries since.
Wow, been pretty busy over the years then.
Yeah, but love it. Love the whole environment of wheelchair tennis, and really enjoy doing that work.
Has it always been tennis for you?
Yeah, I played a little bit of rugby in school until I ended up at the bottom of a scrum and did all my knee ligaments in. So then gave that a bit of a miss and got into a little bit less of a contact sport and took up tennis.
Fantastic. So I guess you've seen tennis in Wales grow tremendously over the years. From your perspective, how have you seen para tennis grow? And how has it kind of changed, maybe since London 2012, maybe?
Yeah, I think the success of the Paralympics in London and the exposure that we got was great for promoting disability sport. And then I think the exploits of people like Gordon Reid, Alfie Hewitt, Jordan Wiley, Andy Lapthorne has really grown wheelchair tennis in Great Britain. And in Wales, it is still growing. We've got clubs in Cardiff, Swansea, Newport, further west, and also up in Wrexham and Colwyn Bay. So it is still growing, and we're just trying to spread the message that there's a sport out there called wheelchair tennis. It's great fun. It's for any ability, and it's a sport for life. And just trying to get new people to come along and try.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the different disabilities that maybe you've coached or I know tennis is for all, but is there specific disabilities that you kind of coach or look after?
So my niche area is the wheelchair tennis, but I have done a little bit of coaching with players with learning difficulties. I was the Welsh coach at a National Special Olympic Games. I was the GB coach at the World Games in Shanghai. Found that area of coaching very difficult, but very, very rewarding. I've done a tiny little bit of visually impaired and blind tennis, which again is amazing. But most of my efforts are concentrated around wheelchair tennis coaching.
That's great. And talk a little bit about, so how is the game adapted in terms of maybe rules from wheelchair tennis to tennis in general?
So there's only one main rule difference between able-bodied tennis and wheelchair tennis, and that is that the ball can bounce twice. The
Right.
first bounce has to be within the court area, and the second can be anywhere.
Mhm.
But all the other rules are the same, and it's the same racket, it's the same balls. So, it means that it's fully integratable. So players with a disability and who are in a wheelchair can play with able-bodied players, and they just get the two bounces, which is great, which means that it is very inclusive.
And a very simple adaptation to the sport, which is fantastic. That's great, Geraint. So you talked, even speaking to you before this interview, I know you've been all over the world, and Tokyo for everyone was a very probably different experience. How was that Tokyo experience for you as a coach, and that maybe how that compared to previous games?
Well, I was very fortunate. I was asked at the end of 2020 to work with a Japanese wheelchair tennis player, Yui Kamiji, who's number 2 in the world. And we did that remotely, which was again a new experience, doing coaching over the internet through Zoom calls and Skype calls. Very difficult, but a new experience and not impossible. And then I started working with her sort of face-to-face from the French Open in Roland Garros last June, and then we did Wimbledon together, and then the day after Wimbledon we flew out to Tokyo, and then I was with her right up to the Tokyo Games, which was about an 11-week stint, and it was incredibly difficult. One of the most difficult experiences of my life, really, what with the quarantine and all the restrictions, the language barrier, the different culture. I said, if I never see another grain of rice, it won't be a day too soon, because we just ate so much rice, 3 meals a day. But to work with a player who was so highly ranked and so focused was brilliant. However, the pressure on her, she's such a well-known star in Japan. Everybody you meet on the street or even in the planes, they were coming up and saying, "Oh, how are you, Yui? We're really rooting for you." So the pressure was immense. She's a superstar in Japan, and so a lot of sleepless nights around before the first match. But she got through the first few rounds, got to the final. Unfortunately, couldn't quite win it, so got the silver medal in the singles and the bronze in the doubles, which was great. It was an improvement on Rio as well. But yeah, an absolutely fantastic experience, if not a very challenging and really stressful one.
And a great insight then, almost from a coach's perspective, that people think athletes get sleepless nights, but certainly the coaches do as well, don't they?
Absolutely. I thought at times, what am I doing? We won 6 medals in Rio with GB, and my reputation was quite good, and then I was putting it all on the line. And if everything had, well, you know what sport is like, on a particular day, everything can go right or everything can go wrong. So you just have to say your prayers the night before and hope everything goes right. And yeah, to be fair to Yui, she played outstanding that first game. I didn't really need to worry, but obviously didn't know that was going to happen. So yeah, had 3 or 4 sleepless nights before the start. And as you said, the pressure is on the coaches as well.
Definitely. No, that's great. And you mentioned the French Grand Slam and stuff, and I always wondered myself, actually, like, what goes on behind the scenes of the Grand Slam tournament? Obviously you see the matches on TV, but what's it like behind the scenes?
I think one of the great things about wheelchair tennis is that the Grand Slams have actually really taken all the wheelchair tennis players and their teams into the fold, and we're treated exactly like any other player or any other coach. So we're in the player lounges, and we will literally be sitting next to Medvedev or Djokovic, in the cafeterias. Federer was next to me one year in his big white suit at Wimbledon. But it's great that the wheelchair players get that experience, and then for us as coaches, it's great that we can share that experience with them. And tennis is in all 4 Grand Slams now, in all our categories as well. So it shows that the sport is growing. when I was in the GB setup at Wimbledon, we had tremendous public support. And, Wimbledon, which is so prim and proper, we did sort of have people cheering, shouting, and really raising the levels of spectators there. But yeah, it's absolutely great that we get this opportunity, but it's also great then that young people can see us on the TV and see the players playing on the TV and think, well, I can give this a go as well.
Exactly, and what an environment to be in, to even just to elevate everyone's games to be the best they can be, to be in that environment next to, Nadal, Djokovic, Federer, what a place to be. Let's bring it back to Wales. So Tennis Wales have the Open Court program running led by them. Can you tell us a little bit about that program?
Yes, so the Open Court program is a national program, and it's delivered all over the country, and it's to deliver tennis sessions for players of all ability, whether that's wheelchair tennis, deaf tennis, visually impaired tennis, walking tennis, learning disability tennis, any kind of tennis really. And clubs are able to apply for funding to run these programs. And it's just making sure that disability sessions are going on and that tennis is absolutely accessible to everybody, and just making sure that the clubs know about this and really open their doors and open their courts to anybody who wants to play.
And what's the best way of getting involved in an open court session, would you say?
I think, if you've got a local club that runs the session, just go down and chat to the coach or the committee. If you don't know if your club does have a session, then get in touch with Tennis Wales, and they'll be able to signpost you to the clubs that are running sessions. And, as I said, we are growing at the moment. I think there's over 37 clubs that are putting different sessions on for different disabilities. So yeah, just get in touch with Tennis Wales, find out where your nearest session is, and get down there as soon as possible and start asking questions and getting on court and hitting balls and having fun.
Exactly that. Start them rallies, eh?
Yeah.
So I think you've got so much experience personally and as a coach and as a player yourself. It's quite a big question, but what does disability sport mean to you?
So I think when I first started the sessions for wheelchair and learning difficulties, I was the same as many other people, just ticking a box. But then when you actually see how sport can be for absolutely everybody and have an impact on everybody's life, I think, it takes it to a different level. I've also been very fortunate that I've been working with the International Tennis Federation on a program that they call the Development Fund. And we start wheelchair tennis programs in countries that there isn't the sport there already. And going to some places like Turkey or Albania or Moldova, and just actually transforming these juniors or these new players' lives through tennis, it is just amazing. Was recently in Brazil and working with kids from favelas, also in wheelchairs who just, when they hit a ball and look at you and smile, you just think, my goodness, I don't need pay, I don't need money. The smile is all the thanks you need, because you are actually transforming lives. So for me, disability sport and making sport accessible and available to everybody, sports plays such a big part in my life, and I just think it's great that it is now becoming more inclusive and it is playing a part in more people's lives across Britain and across the world.
Beautifully said. No, that's amazing, Geraint. And like, following on from that, what would your advice be to somebody who might be maybe on the edge of starting their sporting journey? What advice would you give them? And then, as a kind of a second full question, what advice would you give to maybe athletes who are transitioning out of their own careers and maybe starting their own coaching journey?
So as I said, to players who are just looking for a sport or looking to get out and do something, I'd just say, what's holding you back? Just get out there, find a club and really go for it. you never know how much you're going to enjoy it until you try it. So go out and just find a place that runs a sport and just give it your best shot. You'll soon be told what your potential is, and as long as you maximize your potential, that's all anyone can ask for. Now, that potential might just be to play recreationally or socially, and that's fine. If that's your potential, maximize that out and play with friends. If it's to play for Wales, well, then that's great as well. If it's to go further and play for Great Britain or to play in Grand Slams and Paralympics, well, that's, fine as well. But as long as you can go out, give your best and maximize your potential, that's all anybody can ask, and that's all you can ask of yourself. In terms of players who are transitioning into coaching, I think it's really important to understand that being a great player doesn't necessarily make you a great coach. However, being a great player can give you so much experience and can bring so much to the table that you can pass on through your coaching to someone who's just starting out. So, I think it's really important that more ex-athletes, if they want to give back to the sport, will go into coaching, because they've lived it, they've experienced it. They also have the traction with the new athletes as well. So I'd say, really give that a shot. And coaching can give you a second career and a great career. I've visited countries all over the world and still visiting new countries as a coach, so I think, and the challenge is always there, that how do we make someone better? How do we push them to their limits? And once they've reached their limits, can we push them a little bit harder to get to the very top? And and that's what excites me about coaching, that there's no sort of final destination. The final destination is always open, because you're always asking questions and always trying to be better.
That's fantastic. No, thank you so much for joining us, Geraint, and sharing your passion and your journey through sport and through tennis. And it's fantastic to see Tennis Wales providing so many opportunities for anyone, regardless of age, ability, or disability. It doesn't matter, and it's fantastic to see the Open Court program. Hopefully, it's going to flourish over the next few years, and hopefully we'll potentially see some new athletes come through that you can coach, Geraint.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about disability tennis, to talk about the Open Court program, and yeah, anything we can do to bring more people into the sport and have a bit of fun, the better. But thanks very much, James.
Diolch. No, thanks so much, Geraint, and thanks for joining us. And on behalf of myself and everyone at Disability Sport Wales, we wish you and Tennis Wales all luck for some exciting times ahead. And a huge thank you to those listening and watching. And I'll see you on the next Disability Sport Wales podcast.
Hi, I'm Geraint Richards. You're listening to the Disability Sport Wales podcast.